Good morning, my lovely little ghosts, and welcome to the Dark Orchard. I'm Laura, and this is a music video review. As I said in my intro, this is a music video review. More specifically, today I'm going to be talking about Palaye Royale's new music video for their song Tonight Is the Night I Die. Now, this review is going to be a little different from the reviews that I usually do, because I typically go through a music video, break it down piece by piece, and talk about the different aspects of it. This one, however, because Palaye Royale is a lore of its own and there's so many elements to it, I'd like to talk about an aspect of the video that I know a little something about, and that is historical fashion. So instead of going into the tiny little details and everything, I'm just going to talk about the overall fashion that we see in the music video, because that's the stuff I know about. There were fantastic makeup artists, hairstylists, and designers on set, and they did a fantastic job. This is not me saying anything bad about their designs, but they gave me a date. And because they gave me a date, they opened the historical fashion window, and I crawled right through. The date that they gave was 1833. Halloween, October 31st, 1833. So I dug down into the Laura archives, and as I was watching, some things caught my eye. Let's talk about them. So without further delay, let's get started. So the 1830s was the age of romanticism, which makes it perfect for a vampire storyline. When we think the 1800s, most people think Victorian. So because it's 1833 and not 1837, this is the Georgian era? Words, I'm not good with words. I'm going to say Georgian, the Georgian era. King George was the ruler instead of Victoria. Like I said, it was the age of romanticism. It wasn't as conservative as eras to follow. And because of that, we got really bold fashion statements in the 1830s. The boldest of fashion statements actually were shared among men and women. And that statement was a broad shoulder, a tiny waist, and then for women, a broad hip. Men, it was just broad shoulders. That was the one thing that all of them had, was a broad shoulder in their coat. But women wanted their shoulders accentuated with large sleeves, and they also wanted the hips to be accentuated. We say the Victorian era, they wanted to look like centaurs. In the Edwardian era, they wanted to appear like they were with child. And in the Georgian era, Georgian, I'm going to keep doing that. In this era, they wanted their hips to look voluptuous. And that was achieved by lots of petticoats over top of hoop skirts, and then they also had hip cages. So there were petticoats over top of a cage, and then there were hip cages as well. Women's dresses, especially formal dresses, which we touch on in this Palaye Royale music video, had open chests. So I know a lot of people, when they see the date, they're like, oh, that time period. They don't think about the open chest part of a female's gown, and they probably think it's not historically accurate. But surprise, surprise, it was extremely historically accurate. The gowns were on point as far as the structure was concerned. The sleeves were decently large. They had the chest exposed, which not only plays into the vampire romanticism of it all, but it also was historically accurate. I actually adore these style dresses the most because I like that. I don't like the tight neck Victorian style collars as much as I like the squared off or swooped collars of this style. Something that they kind of didn't touch on though, headpieces. Hats, bonnets, headpieces. It was extremely customary for the 1830s to wear something on your head. So let's review. They wanted wide necklines, an hourglass figure, they wanted poofy sleeves, poofy hips. They also had very elaborate hairstyles. The female hairstyles especially were very elaborate with different pieces put inside of them for formal events such as flowers or jewels, which I believe they do touch on in this music video. So let's talk about what they wore in the music video themselves. So Remington, I looked a little bit into the lore, so I know a little bit about the storyline that's happening in this music video. I'm not going into this blind like I do with some of them. But Remington's character is dressed differently than Emerson and Sebastian, because they're not brothers in this storyline. They are completely different characters, like they are separate from Remington in this storyline. Remington specifically is wearing a very close to accurate suit. He's wearing a black cravat over top of a white top and a black suit jacket. The suit jacket is tailored to fit his form, and it has some broader shoulders. There are some fashion liberties taken in this music video. I understand that. I understand the fantasy element. However, I also understand the 1830s. It would be passable. If you've been to any of my panels, you know that I know more about the Victorian era than I do things that predated the Victorian era, but I do believe that Remington's ensemble would have passed for a formal ensemble in the 1830s. Personally, I would have loved to see a more padded shoulder. However, Remington is so small and he's got such a slender figure, I'm not sure if a historically accurate padded shoulder would look right. And honestly, they do the same thing in historic movies. Like, if the actor does not have the figure for it, they do not do it. So it makes sense. So let's turn back to Sebastian and Emerson. So Emerson and Sebastian are wearing, I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation too, but Hussar jackets, Hussar jackets. Pronunciations are not my strong suit, but these were more military style jackets. They also have broad shoulders. During the early 1800s, like 1830-ish, these jackets were adapted into both French and Spanish military regimes, and are more commonly known in the French regimes. So by wearing a jacket like this, they at least give a hint towards their origin, if not the location of the video itself. For now, I want to transition into the dresses seen in the video, because as you can see, my notes are sort of taking us through the video. If you've seen the video before you're watching this, which I hope you have, we've just been in the carriage with the boys. Now let's transition to the dance with the dresses. I was very, very, very happy with the dresses. They had wide necks. They looked to be of the right kinds of textiles that would have been available. The sleeves were poofy. They wore gloves. You could see the hip pads. Like, everything looked right. Watching it at normal speed, not stopping it, not doing anything with it, just enjoying it as a video. It all looked perfect. I really, really, really loved one of the musicians was wearing a gown that had floral prints, because floral prints were becoming more available as fabric choices in that time period. And not only were florals becoming more available, but reds were as well. It would have been interesting to see more reds. I only wish during the dance the skirts were fuller. There was one dress that had sort of a lace underneath, and it was tucked up in certain areas. And while that was definitely a style, especially in France, there just weren't enough layers. And I know it's a music video. They're dancing. I understand. Like I said before, I understand. But I would have liked to see more layers. Especially if this were a film instead of a music video. I would have loved to see more layers, because the dresses flowed beautifully, but they flowed beautifully. They didn't have any weight to them. So there weren't many apparent petticoats, especially during the dance scene. That being said, the dance scene was absolutely gorgeous. the whole music video was gorgeous. I fell in love with it. I've watched it a gazillion times. So this isn't me just like picking apart a music video. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I want to make that perfectly clear. As a fan of the band, it's beautiful. I love every artistic element that they put into everything. So I don't want you to like see this video and be like, ugh. No, I love them, and I love all the details that they put into it. I'm sure they all sat down and did their own research. It looks like they did. Like, there's a lot of thought that went into this. I'm just being very nitpicky for this video, because I wanted to do a little something different than just break down the video. So once the attacks begin in the ballroom and the women start to run, the woman that's running from Dwayne, her hip pads bounce when she runs, and it just made me so happy. It made me really, really happy to see those hip cages just go boom, 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 boom. I loved it. Like, that was just a absolute highlight. Absolute highlight. So enjoyable to watch. Like, it was so cute, and I loved it. And also, while we're talking about those scenes and the attack in general, I was not expecting the brutality of the kills, and I wasn't expecting the heart being ripped out or the throat being ripped out. It was very 80s movie vibes, like just how unexpected and gory it was. Like, I want to say Lost Boys, almost Lost Boys vibes with how bloody everything got. I didn't expect that. And I know it's odd to bring Lost Boys into this, but I'm going to be referencing quite a few vampire films in this, so let's just throw Lost Boys into the mix. I didn't even have that in my notes, but the gory element to it really gave me Lost Boys vibes, especially the blood. Like, even the blood looked very much like the blood from the Lost Boys. Again, not a bad thing. One of my favorite movies, so love that. So again, that was one of my favorite parts of the whole music video, was how brutal it got. Okay, so here's where I talk about the setting more. I want to assume they are either in France or Spain. The hunter's last name is Visigoth. The Visigoths invaded Spain way before the 1800s, like way, way before. But it is a last name and not a type of people, so it could just be a coincidence, or it could be a nod to where it's set in. The majority of the hints, the style of clothing specifically, and just a few other tiny elements lean me more towards France. So I'm going to assume France is the setting for all of this. Oh, France. Which, I mean, France is terrifying, so it's appropriate that a vampire story would be there. We're going to talk about my trip to Paris at some point, I promise you. But it will manifest at some point, but we are still kind of traumatized. But that's beside the point. I want to say that this is set in France. So let's roll back a little bit to the attack with Dwayne, because he looked stunning. In my opinion, I didn't get the best look of his ensemble. From what I saw, Dwayne's outfit was the most accurate. He had the straight cuffs, he had extremely broad shoulders. There was a bit of a tailcoat happening. In my opinion, it was one of the most accurate ensembles in the entire video. Just a little side note, I was also reminded of the film Queen of the Damned, when Emerson was up on the perch, just like almost on the ceiling, and he attacked from above. It reminded me of the scene in Queen of the Damned when Lestat is up on the ceiling and attacks the goth girls down on the floor. So that's just like a little side note. I told you I was going to be mentioning more vampire films, and that's one of them. When Remington jumps off the balcony, he starts chasing the girl down the hallway. This is the point where Laura went, ugh. And only because I paused it and watched it frame by frame. The first time I watched it and did not pause it frame by frame, I was fine. It looked cool. It looked good. But then when I paused it frame by frame, I noticed bare legs, and I noticed I could see her hoops, which was a big no-no. When I saw ankles, I was like, and then I could see her hoops. That was like one of the biggest faux pas, because you'd wear petticoats, and it was not only a wealth status and a fashion must, but it was also for sanitary reasons. I won't go into the details, but you just didn't go out without less than 3 petticoats. This hoop had maybe 1 petticoat. Maybe. Which isn't bad. Again, it's a music video. She had to run. She was running from a vampire. So it's perfectly okay. But the history part of Laura Brain was like, ooh. So I had to mention it. It looks lovely, though, when you see the hoop swing up. It does have a lovely appearance. When she like grabs the hoop by the bones and just shuffles around, it looks nice. The hoop swings like a bell. It looks nice. It's just not quite accurate. And that's okay. That's the theme for this video. It's not quite accurate, but it's okay. Her hair, though, her hair was done perfectly. It was very, very accurate. So can't say anything about that hair. The house burning at the very end reminded me very much of Interview with the Vampire, which, by the way, is my favorite vampire film. And quite a lot of elements in this music video reminded me of Interview with the Vampire, which is another reason why I want to lean more towards it being set in France. Because even though Interview with the Vampire is mostly set in New Orleans, until, of course, Louis and Claudia go traveling, it has that French element. And, of course, the home burning reminded me of when Louis and Lestat burned the house. So let's talk about my favorite part of the music video, because we're to that point anyway talking about the video. My favorite part was when Remington was attacking in the pool, the fountain, the pool, the water, and it was raining. And then the spoken word afterwards. I love spoken word in a music video or in a song. I think a spoken word element at the beginning, middle, end of a song really makes a song intriguing, especially when you really pay attention to the words that are spoken. A lot of times I even love a song that's all spoken word, like The Approaching Curb by Rise Against. It's the majority spoken word, but it's so good. Same with this song. It's a wonderful song, and it has that little bit of a spoken word element. It's just something about that. And like Black Veil Bride's Wretched and Divine, the spoken word elements in that album are fantastic. It's just something about spoken word in a song that just draws me in a little bit more. So overall, I really loved the storyline. I loved the Hunter Lilith, and I loved learning about that lore a little bit more before I made this video. It took me days digging through Palaye Royale things to find out the storylines behind this video, and I'm sure I still haven't read it all. I'm sure I've said multiple things that don't make sense because you know more than me. I'm not as up to date on my Palaye Royale lore as I should be, but as a casual viewer that just happens to have that 1800s door in her brain, I really did enjoy it. I enjoyed the visuals as well as the song, and I really enjoyed looking into the lore a little bit more. I think it was beautiful. I love that it had like Lost Boys, Interview with the Vampire, Van Helsing vibes. I loved all of that. And as a fan of most things vampire, I say most things vampire for a reason. As a fan of most things vampire, it was very uplifting to see something like that. And just a side note, the stakes, so cool. Like, one of them looked like a table leg, the other one looked like the most splintery wood you could possibly find. Like, I love it. I love it. Vampire things, like, honestly. If there's something that I know just as much about as I do the 1800s, it's vampires and vampire lore. All the things are just up here. There's a door for vampires and there's a door for the 1800s, and sometimes they mix, and that's wonderful. So of course I enjoyed this video. Of course I enjoyed the entire theming. I enjoyed everything about it because it was beautiful. Like, everything about it was stunning. And I'm so glad that I chose to do a video on this. I know it's not normally what I talk about. I know I probably bored so many of you with the history lesson, but some things I just get a little passionate about. And this is something I get passionate about. So it's really cool just doing a little comparison and having some fun with it, because I haven't been able to host any of my Victorian panels since January 2020, I think was my last one. Hopefully some of you enjoyed it, and if not, there is another Palaye Royale inspired video coming out this weekend that I think you'll enjoy a little bit more. Which, if you didn't enjoy this video, you probably didn't make it to this part, so you didn't hear that. So this was me reviewing the music video for Tonight Is the Night I Die by Palaye Royale. For the comments down below, tell me what your favorite part of the music video was. And if you don't talk to me about that, talk to me about something, because I love for you to talk to me down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you come around again soon. Say bye. Bye!